Yo, just give me a second. Closing the window. Alright, guys, what's up? Sunday. Today is the weekend review segment and then Q&A, but we don't got anybody tuning in, so there'll be no Q&A. So it'll be kind of a quick and dirty live stream. Okay, cool. So the main purpose of today is just to kind of go over the week, review everything that I think went well, review everything that I think, or things that I am trying to improve on, that kind of thing. So I'm just going to kind of start and show you how I keep track of my routines, and then also some of the activities that I want to knock off on a daily basis. So let me just grab the screen. Boom. Okay, and you guys can't see. So let me just shrink this down. I wish. Okay, that's visible. So I'll move this here. I'll move to the other corner. Cool. All right. So hopefully that's visible. If not, I can blow it up a little bit. Increase the. There we go. Cool. All right. So how should I do this? So I kind of break my routine into 3 sections. So I have morning routine. I have my during the day routine. So that includes like work, trading. So morning routine, waking up. I kind of have like a morning wake up ritual. Say like a mantra, do some stretching. Get some quick carbs in, go for the run, come back, groom. Also do some like reading and what else? Oh yeah, and I do my orienting the day form where it's kind of just like it's my alternative to like morning journaling. So I just kind of have a Google form with a couple pages worth of questions that are, probing into how I'm feeling, things that I want to accomplish, things that I want to be cognizant of throughout the day, those kinds of things. So I can just have it kind of logged, and I can look back on it and reflect and see if there are any interesting patterns and stuff. So that's the morning routine. Day routine consists of trading, work, then working on Workhorse AI, and then try to get some learning in. So right now that's like Spanish, and then also brushing up on engineering concepts. There's this exam called the Fundamentals of Engineering that I took and got certified for last year, or actually 2 years ago. And so the second part of that is the PE, which you need. I think it's 3 or 5. I think it's 3 years of working experience after you get the FE certification, and then you sit for the PE, which is like a 5-hour exam, and it kind of covers a little bit more in depth of engineering concepts that will be applicable as you're kind of further along in your career, and enables you to kind of sign off on design documents and whatnot. So to cut the whole long spiel, it's just an exam. It's a long, comprehensive exam that requires you to have a solid understanding of engineering topics, physics, math, and then whatever other disciplines are applicable to the specific field of engineering you're studying or are pursuing a career in. So during my learning section of the routine, I'm doing Spanish, and then I'm also studying those specific topics. And then the final piece is going to the gym, right? And then I have my night routine, which to be honest, I haven't really been abiding by that much. But in a perfect world, it looks something like, let me pull it up on my calendar actually. let's see what we got going. Well, I can just tell you what it is. So I have another Google form called Anchor the Night, which basically is similar to the Orienting the Day form in that it's, prompting me to reflect on the day, reflect on what I accomplished, reflect on my physical, mental, emotional state, and then, talk about interactions I've had, challenges I faced, things I did well, things I didn't do well during the day, things that I want to improve, all those kinds of things to kind of round out the night. And then the second part of that is kind of like a little bit more, it's like closer to meditation. So just like visualizing where I want to be, 5, 10, 15 years down the line, updating goals, um, updating, I kind of have like this life plan document where I've broken life into like decades basically. And so for each decade I have like a category of life. So you have like finance, or you have social, or you have family, or you have business. And so I kind of outline the goals, and I just kind of make sure that, I like how things exist in the current state. And if, I've been inspired by something, or I had kind of a formative experience, and I feel like things need to be adjusted, then I kind of go into that document and start updating. And I have a couple of documents that serve similar but different purposes. So, and I think, like, from somebody that, if I'm thinking about what this looks like from the perspective of somebody that doesn't really have, morning, night routines, I can definitely see how my approach is kind of might come off as like overcomplicated, right? Why do I need to be making Google Forms and, memorizing, self-confidence formulas and Dale Carnegie's golden rules, and coming up with a definite purpose in life, and outlining my chief definite aim, and coming up with a plan to actualize my definite purpose in life, and memorizing the 17 best practices for success, or 17 habits of a successful person. All this kind of stuff that, people preach and you read about in self-improvement books, where it's like, you need to be programming your subconscious to be congruent with what your aspirations are. Was not something that I really bought into initially. I mean, I've been exposed to it since probably over the course, probably like 7 years ago. This was when I first read How to Win Friends and Influence People, and then I read Think and Grow Rich. So How to Win Friends and Influence People was written by Dale Carnegie, and then Think and Grow Rich, I think, was written by Napoleon Hill, or like the Napoleon Hill Foundation, and that kind of led me down the rabbit hole of looking into literature that's about, self-improvement, cultivating a mental image, instilling discipline, creating habits, that kind of thing. So maybe it would be cool to kind of do like a book summary or something. Because my library isn't extensive, but I've probably got 15 to 20 books on self-improvement that I've read either in totality or, to some capacity, where I, got some key takeaways. And I think that would be cool to kind of encapsulate that, and maybe put that out in, an offshoot video here or there. 'Cause I got a lot of value from those books, and I think the real value comes from like reading it over and over again, and then realizing how you can kind of take the kernels of wisdom and apply them in a practical means in your life, which looks different for everybody, right? So a lot of my routines were inspired by things that I picked up in these books, and I think just part of me is like, I see so much good stuff reading about in these books that I kind of want to throw it all into a routine, and so it comes off kind of like, there's what's this guy's name? I'm gonna look him up. The guy with the crazy morning routine who like dunks his head in water or whatever that became really popular. Uh, Starts with an A. I think his name starts with an A. But he was like getting a lot of flack on Twitter, I think, for like having an unrealistic routine or selling an image that he doesn't uh, 100% subscribe to. Yeah, this guy, this TikTok guy. Ashton Hall, yeah. And it's so funny because I was like watching people dunk on this guy, and I was like, man, my routine is a little bit reminiscent of that. Even, I'm not saying that I subscribe to it or am able to adhere to it 100%, but in a perfect world, my routine is actually kind of similar to his, except I'm waking up at like 4:30 as opposed to, 3:52 with mouth tape on my mouth and stuff. So that was kind of like I wouldn't necessarily say a wake up call, but seeing the public's feedback to people that like design routines like that and advertise it in social media space made me a little bit hesitant to be sharing this because I'm like, oh, I might just be setting myself up to get dunked on. But um, from like my own perspective, hey, I think you should be as ambitious as you possibly can in setting up your routines because it's all about optimizing and improving and getting better. And so, like, the saying when you're in elementary school and you see the poster on your homeroom teacher's wall, it says, like, shoot for the stars and land among the moon or something like that. Like, set lofty, ambitious goals. And even if you fall short, um, you still come a long way, right? And I think that kind of speaks to the spirit of developing ambitious routines like this. But let's just kind of get back to what I wanted to cover for this week. So this sheet, this page of my daily log sheet is still a work in progress. I'm trying to design it in a way that makes sense. And so as it exists now, I kind of have it in three sections, right? I have the orient the day, which pulls from my Google Forms that I fill every day or hopefully every day in the morning. So if I can pull this up and it doesn't take too long to load, that would be awesome. Maybe I gotta close some tabs here. Yeah, okay, there we go. Oh, you know what? I'm kind of smart. It doesn't have to be full screen. Because the second monitor that I'm using is like, I want to say 3440 by 2 something. So like the resolution is kind of jank. It's super wide. And the window, I'm like just kind of dragging it out to fit the output of OBS. But yeah, so these are, what the daily logs look like. So on the top, we have each column. Each column represents a question. So I kind of have a timestamp. I have the first question, how did you sleep? How do you feel physically? Blah, blah, blah. It goes on. There are probably like 30, maybe 20 questions in here. And I actually put out a video on my channel probably around December or January where I went over exactly, what I have in like each question in the form and the rationale behind it. But just so that you guys can see, this is what the logs look like. And so I'm pulling from here into my analysis sheet. So I pull specific questions. So the sleep question, where I rate my sleep on a scale of 1 to 5, I'm pulling that. I'm pulling the physical, emotional, and mental. What I'm going to try and do is feed my responses to those questions because it's a qualitative question. It's like, how do you feel physically? How do you feel emotionally, mentally, etc. I'm going to try and and feed that into an AI. I have an open AI account, so I might like write up a little program um, that can pull my answers, and then I'll design like some kind of way algorithm or grading system, and then put the grade and populate it in these cells, right? So that I can look, okay, and like very quickly see, okay, how was I doing physically? How was I doing mentally, emotionally? How was my sleep? And I can use that to provide context for um, my performance grades and everything else that I kind of did along the lines. So yeah, so this is still a work in progress, obviously. I've been trying to get the formulas to like pull things correctly, but as you can see, and then I have the daily checklist, right? So this is kind of the macro view. So every month I'm going to look at this and kind of look at the trends and come up with like a story for the month. And I think that would be cool to, I can very easily use that and create a video for YouTube. This is how my month was. This is what I ran into. This is what I noticed. This is what I'm going to change type thing. Let's see. And so this is like kind of a more broken down thing. So here it's like every day is a row, and then I've broken it up: morning routine, middle of the day, night routine, and it's just kind of tracking. Okay, did I miss the mark? Like, did I complete the task? Did I do it partially, or did I miss it? And then above it, I have like a to-do list. So instead of having to like when I start each task, think, okay, where did I leave off? Blah 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 blah. I just kind of populate the to-do list, and I can just refer to that, and that just kind of keeps me moving, and so I don't really have to waste time rethinking about things that I've already thought about, or figuring out where I need to start on certain things. So in the context of this week, we'll just go to the analysis page. I think my adherence has been somewhere between 30 and 40%, or my grade, right? So my grading system is if I complete a task, you get 100% credit for it. If you complete it partially, you get 40% credit for it. I mean, that's kind of an arbitrary weight, but I think it kind of makes sense in the context of, because partial could be 90% complete or 10% complete. I think it's fairer to just make it conservative and say, hey, on average, if I'm completing a task partially, I'll give myself 40% credit. And then finally, like if I miss a task, it's 0. So the grade is just the average of the sum of all the tasks times their weight, basically. So we're trying to shoot for 80% adherence. So week 1 was last week. Week 2 is this week. And the formula I can just tell by looking is busted, because over here I was definitely not 100% on the money. So I'm going to have to go back and fix that. And I'm actually going to write that down, if I can find it. I don't even have a fucking pencil. Type it in here. Fix week 2 formula. Yeah, so I'm going to have to go and fix that. But I think this is nice because it'll be able to kind of give me, without having to like dive back into the minutia of every little aspect of my routine and going into the OD and the O and the AN and the daily checklist, I won't have to go into all those tabs if I want to just say, okay, how did I do this week? How did I do last week? How did I do this month? So that's kind of what I'm trying to do here. Then I also have Saturday assessment and the Sunday optimization protocol, which I also covered in that video that I released on my YouTube channel, The Juice is Loose, kind of in December. And I haven't really been doing this. I think maybe it was a little ambitious or a little too idealistic, but oftentimes I just find like on the weekends, I'm just trying to chill. I'm not trying to kill myself. So I think that might be indicative of deficiencies in discipline and mindset. So I kind of need to work on, I guess this kind of branches into another topic of like what you do when you're having lapses in discipline or motivation. But my approach is always one, try to come up with like a motivational trigger. So that stems from some kind of visceral emotional response that you have to some scenario in your mind. So um, without going into too much personal detail, I think for me, like the responsibility of, um, making sure that I'm strong, I'm stable, and if something happens, um, sort of on the family front, that I can kind of take over and assume the role of like the head of the household. Um, just kind of thinking about that, those kinds of scenarios is usually good enough to kind of get me to do things that I'm kind of dragging my feet on. So I'm going to come up with a better way, or a nicer, a snappier, more punchy way to get that across by coming up with action triggers. And I guess that kind of feeds back into the whole JUICE loose acronym, where JUICE is justify. You know, the justification part is the action trigger, the motivational trigger. Justify, uncover, integrate, control, elevate, and then loose. We're going to remember at this time is live under intentional, consistent execution, right? So you put those all together. I should be doing this. But yeah, so but I mean, I'm not going to front and say that I haven't been doing it when I haven't. So, come next week, we'll have it done. That's my promise. You guys can hold me accountable. My future Jonathan, past Jonathan is holding you accountable for this. So yes, we have the Saturday assessment, which basically before I was kind of thinking about making videos or streaming or whatever, Saturday assessments kind of took on that role. So it was just another Google form where prompting myself with questions about how I think the week went, how I think I performed, aspects of how like I conducted myself socially, um, things that I'm trying to improve on, in my mental capacity, physical capacity, appearance, style, grooming, all these, all the various aspects of human existence, basically. And then Sunday optimization was really just a series of questions about, okay, what should I be changing about my routine? And the whole purpose of creating the form, although I haven't done anything with it, was to be able to track changes to my routine. So looking at this from like a data analytics perspective or a data science perspective or statistics perspective even. If I'm able to track every time that I'm updating my routines and which aspects of my routines I'm updating alongside, um, you know, how many of my milestones I'm hitting, how well I'm hitting, am I overachieving, am I underachieving? If I'm able to track updates, changes, and then also provide the greater context, then I can just super easily figure out, okay, these kinds of changes are things that I respond to really well. Those kinds of changes are things that I'm very resistant to. So I need to either change my approach or come up with or implement elements of those changes that I adopt easily into my approach for those other elements. So that was kind of the thinking behind that. I guess just kind of talking to you guys in terms of how I think the week went. I think I started off the week very gung ho. I think I overestimated how productive I was going to be this week, especially because last Sunday I went to bed at like 12 or 1 in the morning. So that just set me up for being behind the wheel. Is that an expression? Set me up for being behind the wheel. No. Set me up for the week, like having already dug myself into a hole, basically. Right. So I did wake up at 4:30, but it's like I woke up. I can't even remember if I did my run or not. I think I did, and then I missed the next day. But it was like energy levels were just not consistent. So that was something that I really battled with this week. Was like one, waking up actually wasn't that bad, but it was like actually going on the run, going outside. I think I did it 3 or 4 times this week out of ideally 7 times a week. And that should be especially reasonable because um, I don't have I haven't set any expectations as to like effort for cardio for my run. So it's not like I'm going out and I'm, really pacing hard for 3 miles. It's like literally the expectation is you just wake up, you go, you get on the track, and you do what you can. Um, and that's kind of how I set it up to encourage myself to just kind of get up and go through it. But clearly, I'm still resisting it. So today I'm getting to bed. It's 9:30. I'll be in bed at 10. Hopefully, be asleep by 10:30, and having that 6.5, 7 hours of sleep was not even 6 hours of sleep. It's six. Um, Having 6 hours of sleep as opposed to three. Well, at least I'll be in a shallower hole, and I'll be able to kind of. I think my big thing is like I'm a huge momentum person. So like when I have small wins, when I am able to complete small tasks and see that I'm progressing, that is very powerful and motivating for me. So being able to get up and 100% adhere to my morning routine is going to be super helpful in keeping that consistent throughout the entire week. Um, so that's kind of the plan. I think anything else about this week that I think was super special. Um, obviously the computer breaking kind of sucked. I think it was on Thursday or Friday, Wednesday or Thursday or Friday, one of those days. That really sucked. So having to like do everything off my laptop, which is like first world problems, right? Like there are solutions to these problems. It's not the end of the world, but it is a disruption, and sometimes like even the smallest disruptions are still can kind of throw you off in ways that you don't really anticipate they would. So for me, it was like, oh, it's not going to be a big deal. I can just use my laptop to do everything. But I'm used to, being able to have tons of applications running on my computer. I could have my trading windows open. I could be streaming. I could be working on Workhorse AI. I could also be doing work. I could have all that stuff running at the same time. I could be switching between them. I could also have a video editor open, like seamless transitioning between tasks, which maybe isn't the most efficient or optimal way of working or setting up a workflow. But that's how I've always kind of worked. And so then having to kind of be constrained to a laptop where it's got a regular i5 CPU with an integrated graphics processing unit. So it's like you have to be very frugal with computer resources and applications. So I can't have lots of stuff running. So like OBS and one other thing is like the max that I can have running on this thing. And so just like me as somebody that likes to be transitioning to things fast, having to wait for web pages to load or for things to buffer, I wouldn't say encourages, but it like facilitates me to kind of get distracted because when momentum is disrupted, I just find that like I deviate towards cheap dopamine. So, and I think this is also something that I've been kind of exploring um, through a lot of introspection. But like, and I think this is valuable too. So I'm probably going to put out a stream or a video on this. But like figuring out what your vices are, what your tendencies are, how you respond to boredom or challenges, and finding those triggers. Like, okay, this is how I respond, this is what triggered it, and literally writing it out and listing it helps you be more cognizant and aware. And so, like, in real time, even if you're not able to prevent yourself from deviating from the task or, um, you know, indulging, you're still able to be um, cognizant, and you can still track it. And it's valuable because you can look back and then kind of plan for the future. So say, hey, I know I'm going to encounter this at some point in the week. This is how I'm going to try to circumvent. Or I tried this last time, it didn't work, so I'm going to have to think of a new way to kind of get everything back on the right course. And so, like, in that spirit, coming up with productive ways to combat those triggers. So for me, it's like I literally made a list. It's like, because I think my two big things are like if I'm bored or hungry or tired. Like those are my three things that lead me on the path of ruin. So if I'm ever experiencing those symptoms, that's usually when I start deviating from routines, schedules, tasks, performance starts dipping, all those things. So then it's like, okay, I have these three things. If I notice it, I have a list of 5 or 6 things that aren't necessarily task specific. Like, okay, I'm bored. 5 things I can do. 1, exercise. 2, take a walk. 3, just sit. Sit in the boredom. 4, clean. So clean the environment, clean the room, organize. And then that's either 5 or I think that was 4 or 5. And then the last one is write. Right. So like journal, write out my ideas, just kind of think, sit in that state. And so having a protocol where it's like, okay, I'm noticing that I'm deviating from the task, and these are the things that I've set out that are acceptable to do in these situations, aside from, just, getting right back to it. In a perfect world, we just kind of get right back to things as soon as we realize that we're deviating from the task, but sometimes just don't have the willpower for it. So that's kind of the compromise that I've been working on, and I've noticed that I'm like so much more cognizant of when things are changing and slipping. And I've noticed that like when I kind of employ those, I guess you could call them like reset buttons. It does help. So that's encouraging. It's still kind of an idea that's in its nascent stages. It's developing. I'm not 100% committed, but I'm confident that it's putting me on the right track. So, you guys will see over the test of time whether or not, my intuition agrees with, my experience and whatnot. But I think that's pretty much all I wanted to cover for this week. I was a little behind the 8 ball on the video editing, but we will have the video out Monday every day for the respective content categories, and we'll still be streaming. So expect the trading and market analysis stream tomorrow from 8 to 10, and then the video for Monday will be going over how to set up your MetaTrader environment and just kind of going over the tool. It'll be kind of like a tutorial, I think. Because I think that'll be useful because people will be tuning into streams, sporadically. And so instead of having to like dedicate time each stream to like showing people where tools are or, where specific things are, just being able to refer them to a video that exists somewhere that could even be part of a series will provide value and save people time. So that's kind of what I'm leaning into for tomorrow. And I forgot to freaking put the schedule out. Okay. So I might not get to it tonight. I'm just gonna be honest. I'm kind of tired, but by the end of my stream on Monday, and it's, dude, the crazy thing is this isn't even, fuck it, I'm gonna do it tonight. It's not that big of a deal. Yeah. Also, the schedule will be visible on all channels, on all streaming platforms, so you guys can easily reference it. It's a good thing that I kind of went through this internal dialogue and prevented the procrastination. So I appreciate that. But other than that, appreciate you guys for tuning in.